So on one end of the spectrum, you've got people who say you should never criticize the Holy Father. You should essentially be an apologist for whatever he happens to do and say. But then on the other spectrum, you've got people who seem to speak continually disrespectfully about the Holy Father. Help us see.
The comment box is the worst place to be.
Those are the lowest form of human discourse. I chose to stop reading them months ago. But yeah, like, where is this line? Because none of us want to be criticizing the Holy Father in a way, I hope we don't, in a way that's disrespectful to him or his office, or that leads others to take the papacy less seriously. Nor do I think it's important. Well, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll start and I'll throw it to Diane. But number one, charity in all things. You know, we should always speak charitably about those we disagree with. And the personal failings of the Pope have nothing to do with the fact that he's holding that office and he has a duty to teach. So we should leave aside any comments about his personal behavior or things we find unacceptable. We may not agree with it, but there's no point in bringing it up. You know, how he does certain things, but when he teaches in ways that are wrong, when he, for instance, violates rubrics that are important, you know, the other day he celebrated Mass wearing no vestments. And this was kind of shocking because that's a liturgical abuse. Shouldn't do that. You know, it encourages others to do that.
It reminds me of priests, you know, out of the, I don't mean to paint them all with a broad brush, but the 60s and 70s who would kind of celebrate just with their stole, and it's kind of all very hippie-ish.
Yeah, well,
that's what it encourages.
One of the crises in the church has been the loss of reverence and sacrality and solemnity in divine worship. And we basically make worship into a gathering in which the priest is in charge and he'll do whatever he wants. And that's, if there's one thing that's destroyed a lot of people's faith, is finding that the worship of God has now been substituted with essentially the worship of man, the celebrant or the choir or, you know, performances. For instance, you have dance performances at masses sometimes. This is absurd. Dance is beautiful. I'm all in favor of ballet, you know, theater, musical theater is great. That's not what the worship of God is. So we leave that out.
No, I would just say that probably the internet is a gift to our age and makes possible so much communication and learning about so many things that otherwise would just take so much time. But it's become far too easy in the social media age to sit behind one's computer and lash out. And particularly for Catholics, one would simply hope that Catholics would live truth and charity and be able to speak if there's a need to. They have every right to, but to do so in a way that's constructive and is that not, casting insults either at a pope or at anyone, really. I mean, that's not the way of Christ. And
who do you think's doing a good job at addressing this respectfully? Probably y'all in the book, but who else?
We try. Oh no, there are a lot of good critiques out there. Father Fessio and
Edward Penton.
Edward Penton is a great journalist. Raymond Arroyo, who I work with at EWTN, Bob Royal. I mean, anybody, I write for the Catholic thing. Anybody who writes there is generally of that same attitude, which is the duty of Catholics is to defend the truth in charity. So, there are people out there. There are others who like to use slang and, provocative language. And then, in America, we love the combination of comedy and seriousness at the same time. So people will say serious things to cause us to laugh. And that's not appropriate when talking about church doctrine.
So here's my next question. It's a little harder. You've given me a couple of names of people who are doing this right. Why not give me some names of people who are doing it wrong, in the sense that they are being slanderous? Because if we're going to call out the Pope and the cardinals by name, because what they're doing is public, do you feel free to call out anyone publicly online or elsewhere?
There's a website called Canon 212, and they constantly use the expression thug cardinal or thug pope. This is ridiculous. It shouldn't be done. This is not, if you have a disagreement with something the Pope says, use his name. Same with cardinals. So this is kind of that jokey, inflammatory language, and it's sort of like, the National Enquirer approach to news. You put out a headline that's provocative, hoping people buy your newspaper. So I don't like that at all. And then bloggers, various ones get into different levels of disrespect. So,
yeah, I wouldn't choose to comment.
Yeah, but see, why? This is what I'm interested about. Is it because we're friendly with these people? Is it because they're a mixed bunch?
Well, Diane's a journalist, so she's got a profession. Yeah.
Yes, and then when you were asking us about who's doing it well, I think that depends on what your profession or what your role is. For a journalist, you don't generally put your own opinions into things so much. A certain amount of analysis is certainly justified, but one doesn't generally put one's opinions in. For a commentator, such as Raymond Arroyo or Father Murray or Bob Royal or others, they're more free with their opinions.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And I have to say, speaking of Catholic Twitter, it can be a rather muddy place, and I don't want to participate in it. I don't want to invite that upon myself or upon other people that I know. And I don't see, it's not a constructive place for a back and forth. So I prefer just to not weigh in.
I think part of the thing that's confusing to a lot of us is that there are people that we enjoy listening to, and they'll get like 90% spot on, right? They're saying 90% of the things that we wish our priest would say, or we wish somebody we respected greatly would say. But there's like 5% that just makes us go, I don't know, I can't put my finger on why this is wrong, but it doesn't seem like you should say things that way. So it can be difficult to sift through.
Well, take the 90%, and look, everybody has disagreements, and that's part of the beauty of knowledge of history, philosophy, and theology, that there are different takes on how we should express or propose things.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought about the video.